on the application of drones for malaria prevention. Today, we are joined by Leslie from Madagascar Flying Labs and Yusuf from Tanzania Flying Labs. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to leave questions in the chat. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A/discussion period. I'll read out the questions or comments that have been entered in the chat. Members of the audience may also at this point feel free to unmute themselves to share questions or comments directly with the presenters as well. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Leslie and Yusuf.
Okay, so we will share with you, hi everyone, sorry. We will share with you our presentation concerning the agenda of the webinar today with Yusuf, who will present some key figures of malaria, especially in Africa, of course, and then an introduction of Tanzania and Madagascar Flying Labs. Me, I represent Madagascar Flying Lab, of course, and we will do a Q&A, a dialogue with Yusuf about malaria prevention in Africa. So the next slide. Next one again. Yeah, this one is about malaria key figures in Africa first and then in Zanzibar. There are nearly 230 million cases of malaria worldwide, a lot, still a lot. 40% of cases of death occurs in Africa, and 70% of the 400,000 killed by the disease are children. So that's why malaria is a challenge for Africa, and that's why we believe drone can help to fight this disease.
On the same case, we can see there's a little bit difference from different parts of the world. As in Zanzibar, you can see we are now actually living within this 10 years period with less than 1% of malaria cases. And in this percentage, you can understand now 58% of all cases, they are actually being classified as an imported case. For instance, you can see currently I'm speaking with you while I'm Kilimanjaro. So if I'm going to be bitten here with a mosquito and the mosquito already has a malaria, so that means I'm going back home tonight, and likely I may or may not go home with a malaria infection. So next slide.
So it is a quotation that we like with Yusuf, citing the well-known example of Africa just trains to mobile technology. We have new vaccine, new drugs, but those tools don't work unless you can get them to people. And we believe that drone can help to bring drugs and vaccine, etc., to the people. Maybe Yusuf, you would like to introduce your vision from Tanzania before Madagascar?
Yeah, sure. As we're here and all the Flying Labs already, for those who are new to the Flying Labs network, our main vision within Tanzania Flying Lab is actually to tackle all the possible use cases which can be related to the usage of technology. And here we are focusing on the robotics, and not just flying robots, but also terrestrial and marine robots, as well as understanding how we can be able to utilize the technology towards fighting on different diseases, but also making sure we are working hand in hand with everybody during disasters and other situations.
For Madagascar, so aerial metric is the name of Flying Lab for Madagascar. For 5 years now, we have designed cargo drone for the delivery of life-saving health products as anti-malarias, antibiotic, contraceptive, water treatment, tablets, vaccine, etc., to the most excluding population of Madagascar. Indeed, in Madagascar, as I'm sure in most of the country in Africa, we have difficulties with the road and transport commodities. So drones are key to delivery, especially in health, for the populations that can't have access to this kind of medicines. And besides, IAM Metric would like to develop also the economy of the country. And we are fully designed and assembled our drone in Madagascar.
Great. Thank you, Yusuf and Leslie, for that background on malaria and for your introductions to Madagascar and Tanzania Flying Labs. I will now pose a series of questions to each of our presenters to answer on the behalf of their labs. So my first question is just to pitch your projects for the use of drones in malaria prevention. And Leslie, if you wanted to take it off.
Okay, so concerning about our project for malaria prevention in Madagascar, with the rise in resistance to mosquito net insecticides, controlling the spread of mosquitoes is now key to fighting the disease. Madagascar is one of the world's largest consumers of rice. Of course, rice paddles is also an ideal habitat for the development of mosquito larvae, well-known vector of malaria, as you know, I'm sure. In this context, we work with NGO APT Associate in collaboration with USAID to launch a larvicing project in 2 highly impacted regions of Madagascar. Eradicating mosquito larvae is one of the primary ways to prevent the disease, of course, which is rising in the country. In collaboration with APT, we will use drone technology to carry out this project. We will do the project in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be about mapping activities, of course. We have mapped more than 20,000 hectares of area in 2 districts of Madagascar, as I said. And phase 2, we don't start yet these phases. We will do in more than 70 areas a spray. We will spray insecticide, of course, and twice a month. So it's quite a challenge also for us.
Good. Let me start with this introduction, and then you can see the project that we are actually been doing in our country. As what I've said, specifically in Zanzibar, we are now actually not in controlling malaria, but we are in eliminating malaria. So even the organization, the responsible organization has been changed its name 10 years ago from Zanzibar Malaria Control Program to Zanzibar Malaria Elimination Program. So why we are talking about elimination? There was a time in which we were already in a good stage, close to say we are going to zero malaria, Zanzibar. But then we are living on the islands. And the good thing is, if we will not let anyone come to our islands, or we are not going out from our islands, then we will be in a better position to say we are hitting to the target of saying we have a zero malaria. But we cannot live without having friends and others, right? So welcoming, and we have to go out and in. Now we have that challenge of saying, how can we actually reach the target of Zanzibar of saying we have a zero malaria? This is why the responsible unit as a program decided to say, now we are in position to make sure we can we can fight on the vectors. I'm just changing my position. I saw there's a little bit of a sun toward me. So how we can control the vectors. When we say vectors here, we mean how we can control the areas in which favor the mosquitoes to do breeding. So even if somebody coming in with malaria, if there's no any other mosquitoes who can transport malaria, who can go bite, take some bloods of yours and transport that bloods to another person, then we are in a good position of saying we can reach our target of saying we have Zanzibar zero malaria. So our projects actually has been a partnership. So as Flying Labs, our role was actually to bring some of these initiatives, but there are other initiatives which was already started thanks to the Abbas University, who came up with the project called Spatial Intelligence lava siding system, in which this project we try to use satellite imagery to try to map the wet areas within the Zanzibar, and then we use drones to map these areas, to locate for these water bodies within these areas. And finally, we had another project called the anti-malaria drone. We use this project to show how we can use drone to spray the lava side. And here purposely we went to use for aquatin, but we know we have other lava side like methoprene and others. So our project, you can see we are trying to use drone in terms of mapping, locating these water bodies, because it has been an issue for people to traditionally locate these water bodies. And then whenever we find these water bodies, there are some water bodies which can still be treated as a traditional way, in which now we have improved it by using a mobile app. So we map, we digitate the water bodies, we feed them to the mobile app. If these water bodies are small, then these water bodies, the community are going to do spraying on these water bodies, small ones. And then the big water bodies, in which we believe they are hard for community to treat them, then the unit is going to use drone to do spraying on these water bodies. So we have not yet gone to the transportation, like a cargo delivery, but we have started using what possibly in our hands with the rest of our partners.
Great, thank you so much, both of you. We can move on to the next question.
Question number 2.
Great. So my second question for each of you is, are drones in health life-changing for Africa?
Yeah, you can start,
yeah,
Yusuf.
I can start on that. You know, when it's come to the technology, it may develop somewhere, for instance, or it may develop within your realms, but it may not really work perfectly on that environment. For instance, before I touch on the drone, let me give you just a vivid example. We have a mobile monies within Africa, especially in Tanzania. A lot of people, like maybe 80%, are using mobile monies instead of using the credit or debit cards. So you can see these are the technologies, and they are working differently with our environment. So for the drone in health, if we start just a mapping drone, which maybe people think it can be used just in agriculture, it can just be used in mapping, the same mapping approach, it's helping a lot, because we cannot actually manage to say, let's use a manned aircraft to do surveying of this area frequently. Let's use satellite. We all know if you have the satellite, which you can get an observation daily, as what has been claimed for now, we are facing another problem of the clouds. Or if we want to have a free cloud satellite, then we are having another problem of cost. So for us specifically, and I believe in Africa and some part of the world, when it's come to the drone in health, is really a life changing. Even now, people are using drone to do spraying on the agriculture. We are using drone to spray the water bodies in which are risk or threat for malaria breeding site. So I'm completely saying yes.
So for us, of course, a drone can do the difference in Africa, and we believe that drone can save life also, because it is a technology that can help with routing, restocking of health facilities, emergency support to epidemics response also, transportation of biological samples, transportation of vaccines, and drone. We think that this technology is at the beginning, and we can use it a lot in Africa because in developing countries they are still fragile due to geographical conditions, limited infrastructure, and of course difficult transportations. So we think we can help to develop health in Africa, and we believe that drone can be life-changing in Africa.
Great, thank you. Our third question is, do you have a way for a new approach to larval source management when it comes to malaria prevention? And we'll start with Leslie for this one.
For sure, it's a new. We rig a new technology, so our approach is still the same for larval source management. You need to manage the larval habitat in order to avoid the development of mosquitoes in Africa. So I think the new approach is by technology. We discussed about that with Yusuf yesterday, and I totally agree about it, because in Africa, we don't have an effective anti-vaccine for malaria. So larvicide, insecticide, and all we can do for prevention is essential to fight the disease in Madagascar also. And we hope that this initiative will be developing in the next years. We saw some example in Chad, for example, with MSF, which the organization launched an insecticide spraying operation in the Mosala region, targeting 22,000 houses. So it's quite a lot. Apt Associate, the organization we work with, also chose to support a disease control program in Nigeria by providing insecticide-treated beds nets for children. So I think it's the beginning of a new approach with technology to prevent malaria, and we hope we can do a lot in the next year with drone to help to fight this disease.
Leslie has covered everything on that part. Just in addition, I will say one other thing which is actually happening, the technology doesn't really kind of changing the way those who are responsible in managing vector disease completely. But what it came is actually to provide some kind of an easiness toward the approach of what they have been doing on the traditional way. For example, there's an activity, for instance, if I have been tested like I have malaria, so what usually is happening, health officers will also pay a visit to my home, try to do what they're doing, fancy things like catching malaria, mosquitoes who are spreading malaria, like adult mosquitoes. But then on the morning of that night, they actually do a survey. They call it 500 meters radius. So they are doing a survey to understand if there are any nearby water bodies around that area. So you can imagine that kind of an activity. How does someone is confidently making sure they have been covering that 500-meter radius? Is difficult. So now they are going to have another initiative of saying, now we will be able to fly drone, making sure we can plan a mission and exactly cover a 500-meter radius around the house in which we went to do kind of survey, because someone came out having malaria on that area. And that, we hope it will also increase the approach of larval source management in somehow, because we will the entomologists will be sure they have completely really cover the area so that there's no any water source or water bodies nearby. So this is really is paving, the technology is really paving a new approach, but it's not new in terms of changing the entire workflow, but it is new in terms of adding value to the effort that these peoples are taking.
Great, thank you. And my fourth question for you is, how can we open the door for technological approaches to malaria prevention in other countries? Sorry, we'll start with Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Sorry.
First of all, we all have to understand the situation first within our own countries, because malaria is not a threat to every country, depend upon the climates and the weather on that area. I believe some other people may not speak about malaria, but they may be speaking about maybe diarrhea or any other disease which is kind of transmitted or spreaded by any other form. And for them, they may want to take a lead to see how technology it can help to add the efficiency toward fighting on that particular disease. But when it's come to malaria, the biggest way of fighting with malaria, we say, is to kill the area. You don't have to give them a means for them to do spreading. I mean, how do I say it? You don't have to give them a way for them to continue growing up and getting their new families on board. That's the biggest way to do it. So for other countries, this is really an easy and affordable and doable and visible technology. It's only a matter of seeing if other part of the world they're trying to use drone in this way, how can we as a country use it on the other way? And this is always coming with doing testing and understanding what can work best within your own country. The other way, opening door for this kind of project, I would just say, sometimes we may have these issues of maybe having a communication within our own other different institutions, but we have to try our level best that we can show them as far as we can with a little budget that you may have sometime. Just show them this is how you need to work. You know, sometimes people can be kind of a rigid accepting the technology. There may be fear of it, but as long as you are trying slowly, not by pressure, not by pushing, slowly you are teaching them, probably they will come to the end, to the point in which they will be able to do so. For example, what the Madagascar Flying Lab is doing, I'm already interested to see how we can do that in my own country, for instance, because sometimes we are using these community people, you know, and if we are using community people, they may have a drone, or let's say they don't have a drone yet, but we have already found out these are the water bodies around your areas, which we have captured yesterday, and we want you to treat these water bodies within these 7 days. Can we also use drones to transport the larvicide, like the best way, let me just call them chemicals, the larvicide to that area and then they will be able to do treatment to these water bodies. So there's actually many ways, I believe, in which other countries as well, they can open their doors. Otherwise, we are always welcome, and we are ready to share as much and as far as we can to support if you have such initiatives in your own country.
So as Yusuf, we believe that we can export our solution and our technology for other countries, because malaria is one of the problems in Africa and in other developing countries. And we also believe that we need to capitalize on best practice also, and to see what other flying labs just do, and how we can also adapt our method and see with the help of the others. So Flying Lab is a community, and we like to share our solution and how we do things, because we think that we need to capitalize on best practices of each Flying Labs. And moreover, besides spraying, we also believe in the development of cargo technology, drone cargo technology, because in Madagascar, roads are really difficult, and we need to find another way to deliver medicine as drugs or vaccine, etc. So we believe that we believe that we can use cargo drone in other countries also, and it can be exported, because our issue, I'm sure we have the same issues than other countries in Africa. And we are pleased to share our project and to share the best practice of each Flying Labs. So I think it is the end of the webinar.
Yes, thank you both so much, Leslie and Yusuf, for sharing your expertise and experiences on this very important topic. We will now take questions in either the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question directly to one of our presenters. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jean-Alain Bernadel from Haiti. First of all, I want to thank the presenter for this good presentation. I'm from Haiti Flying Lab. So my question is this: I would like to know how did you implement your drone cargo project? So can you give me a brief step-by-step how you use drone to ship merchandise or medicine to other part of your country? Thank you.
Great. Leslie, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question. In Madagascar, we work hand by hand with the health ministry and with local implementation. So we use these facilities to stock the medicine. And concerning the question about step by step, we do projects in different phases for the delivery of vaccines. So first, we need to identify the area, and we map the area. We identify the best way to deliver it, how much time we need, how kilos we will transport, because the battery is always an issue for drones. So you need to see all the details to be sure that the flight will be okay. And you of course, you still need to work hand by hand with the local population, because you always need some point to stock the medicine. So it's very important to do some prevention and to explain why drone is important for them and what we will do. So it's quite also a sensibilization work, because drones are still well known in countries, and it is quite a first for Madagascar to transport vaccine by drones, by cargo drones. So, and as Yusuf said before, it is always a test and learn. So you start with a small zone, small area, and then you will grow with other areas. But you always need to test your technology and to see if you don't forget something, some issue, and then you can do more flight plans.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you need more details, we can speak about it. We have some presentation also about it.
Thank you. That would be glad if you share it on the chat. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, sorry, Yusuf, did you have anything to add to that question before we continue?
Just
All good?
saluting. Leslie has done.
All right, sounds good. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Richard from Fiji Flying Labs. Why did you go ahead and develop your own drone technology in country rather than buying it in from, say, DJI or overseas? And what was I guess, the commercial reason for that? And do you have like a long-term projects with government, I guess, doing the mosquito eradication projects now on an ongoing basis?
Yusuf, you would like to answer to this question?
Yeah, I can answer in part because the biggest part is on the Madagascar side. Actually, there as what you have said, it could be very easy for a flying labs to say, let me just import a drone which has been designed and manufactured somewhere else. But we can always agree, we know our own areas better. We know our terrain, for example, we know what works well, but also when it's come to the cost of developing this type of vessels, it's also vary. So if you develop your own, you have more right and you have more kind of maneuverability toward that technology. Let me give you an example. If there is any problems today of a drone X, because we have many examples of that, likely I am supposed to ship it back. I hope I've said it very well. I'm supposed to ship it back just in case for it to be repaired, and then it has to be transported back once it has been repaired. We are not saying everybody has to go with a solution of saying let's develop our own drones, but if in a country there is that capability of doing so, then probably we will always suggest doing that. For example, Leslie explaining they are developing their own designing, although they may have been importing some of the part, they may not develop every part from the Madagascar. For us in Zanzibar, we have not. So all of the drones which we have been used, all of them, they've been imported. But that is the challenge that we are facing. Although we are trying to see with this manufacturer, how can we have center close nearby, for instance, in a region, to say we can do this kind of repair? Because believe me, importing and re-exporting and re-importing of these equipments become hassles, especially when it's come to the custom and other issues. So that is the like the big motivation of saying. So we always we have to, if there's the cost is affordable, but also if there's a chance, we don't have to kill that chance, because we also need to understand how we can develop solutions on our own, and maybe we can be able to export those solutions to nearby countries which we believe we have a similar environment. So that can be my response. If they are not enough, I think Leslie can heads up on that.
I think I have quite the same answer to that. We believe that it's important to develop local economic, and it's better to develop our drone, adapt to our condition, especially weather condition, of course. So that's why we try to do our own drones, but sometimes it depends on the project, and sometimes we also need to import drones, but we are not fond of this solution. But for example, for the spraying, we will use T20. So it's an imported drone. It will depend about the project and the solution we need to do. But most of the time, we would like to do our own drones.
Thank you.
If it is possible.
And the other part of my question was, do you have ongoing projects now with your government or other people for using the malaria eradication?
In Madagascar, we work with NGOs organization, and the NGOs are linked to governments, because it is still quite difficult to work with governments directly. Quite time consuming, and it is easier for us to work with NGO organization, and then they link with government.
Can I do a follow-up question, please?
Maybe just also to heads up on what Leslie has said. In Zanzibar, particularly specific when it's come to malaria, the government has created a kind of a department.
Yes.
Guys, your job is you are in a war. So these are like soldiers in a war with malaria. And their job is to find any possible initiative, whether it is inside, whether it is outside, to make sure we reach our goals. So that is the task that we gave them. And the weapons, we as a flying labs,
sorry, I understand. So then the other question I have then is the comparison of your deployment technology with the drone versus walking around or going with a lander vehicle spraying. Can you comment on that, please?
Definitely. I don't want to finish the report because our colleague from Abbas University has done finishing providing the report, but our initial report, it shows a very, very, very big differences as what we have said. Imagine now, most of the people here, they're just using smartphone for chatting, okay? But imagine now you are adding up some of this ability for this community to say, you know what? We can actually survey this area. You don't know how to locate the water bodies. We can use computers and other people to locate water bodies. And your task, using your district level, you can actually guide yourself to say, we have these water bodies, and we can understand who treated it, when it was treated, and how it needs to be treated. So instead of just walking around, now we are giving people an ability to walk to the destination. Let's just say that straight to the point. This is the water bodies. I need to treat it. Having said that, doesn't mean you don't have to take care of what you saw, because sometimes we said, if you take an image today evening, like now, tomorrow it's already outdated. We can agree on that, but we are always trying to find a way how we can reuse it. So the same smartphone, the same tools gave the community people to say, I saw a water bodies in this area. So that person can actually click, take a pictures, do some measurement, and it can report back to the fighting base to say we have found a water body in this area which actually need to be treated. So things has changed, and it has already proven success on our side. That's why we are speaking with it with a hardly confident. The technology, it can add value. Doesn't change because you cannot change in war, but you can add value in fighting malaria. That's why we said it's not just about malaria now. The government is still interested to go far to make sure we can also try to fight with any other disease, which the source, it can be maybe a water or something else, which we can use drones to add as a fighting tools. Yeah.
Yeah. So just some background on us, we did a project with the World Mosquito Program in Fiji for the Wolbachia bacteria for Zika virus, dengue. I don't know if that's a problem in your country with
is it dengue? Dengue, but
Dengue.
we call it dengue. Yeah, I think it's the same.
Yeah. So we did a project with robotics if you have interest in that. Yeah. Using drones to disperse the mosquito with to eradicate that.
I remember that is the one which has released a mosquito to fight for that. Okay, perfect. Yeah, probably we should be.
Yours is different because yours is more around insecticides, I guess, and
yes,
elimination. Ours was a different type of method.
If I can comment on that, actually, we will say the difference was what were using, or what were you using as a kind of what was the chemical? Let me just even say the mosquitoes who are going to fight for dengue, they were let's take them as a chemical as well. So it was only kind of a difference maybe on how to deploy. So we have a difference, yeah. When we deploy the mosquitoes, when we deploy a fluids, or when we deploy a crystals. So the good things, all of that now is possible. So thank you for reminding us in Fiji that you have such solution to deploy the.
We did it. It just unfortunately hasn't taken off commercially. That's why I wanted to understand why yours is successful and why it's adopted in your country better.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I think there was a question on chat.
Hello, hello everyone.
Maybe Brian, before the next question, do you want to illustrate what is on the chat, and then we give the next person to ask?
Yes, thank you. So we have a message in the chat from Anna Jackman. She says, thank you very much. Very interesting to hear from both of you. And she is asking, what are the main challenges you have faced in your drone usage and trials? For example, noise, public perception. Yeah.
For sure, when it's come to the noise and public perception, as the example that you gave, Anna, there wasn't kind of a challenge, because as you know, whatever project that is done within the flying labs, there's a learning to say, always do community engagement. So the better you do a community engagement, that's actually the roadmap to the success of your drone project. So for us, we took care of that in the beginning, and we make sure the organization that we are trying to teach them and to work with them, they are always taking care of that part. So they have a specific kind of segment within the organization that is really focused on that. And for us, we just add value when it's come to the technology, since that maybe has not been well understood and how it's work. But other challenge I would say for us, you know, sometimes you are having breeding sites maybe under the tree. So it is not obvious that you will be able to detect that breeding site just from the image itself. So that has been kind of a challenge, but we kind of got a solution toward that, is what the machine learning is doing. Since once we covered on that area. We send the ground team to do surveying. As what I've said, they are also possible for them to input water bodies which we have not been able to detect on the images. Then we are building an understanding that in these environments, they are possible to get water bodies. So you can just keep it as a mark and saying, just make sure you also check on this area. There is a possible water bodies. So that is how we have tried to work out on the challenge that we have. Unless you have another example of challenge that we can try to mention it. Maybe Leslie.
I think we have quite the same challenge. We also work with the organizations that for population sensibilization, because they need to understand what we do on the field. Because when we map an area, they don't know why we do it. And sometimes they are afraid we are here to steal their land or some crazy stuff because they don't understand why we are doing it. So it's very important to take time for population sensibilization, I think. For cargo drone, it's easier because you see the result, it's easier to understand for population. And I think another challenge for us, it's always the weather condition, because we have rainy seasonal. So for spraying activity, it's not easy to do it, of course. So we need to test the spraying activities during the raining seasonal and to see how it works. It will be the phase 2 for us. And of course, but I think it is the same challenge for everyone. Batteries, as I said before, it's always a challenge, because when you have to do your work on a big area, I said before, we have to map the more than 20,000 hectares. So it's quite a lot. Lots of batteries, lots of drones, and sometimes you need to go in some area. You can't do it with car. You don't have roads, so you need to walk. And with batteries, it's not always easy, but you always, at the end, you always find a solution.
I saw an edit question by Anne.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Yes, okay. I'm Cesar from the Cameroon Flying Labs. Yes, I'm still curious about using drones on fighting malaria, because malaria is the biggest issue when it comes to health in Cameroon. So I have a question. Do you have real insight, real statistic that shows that drones are really reducing the number of malaria cases?
I think Yusuf has some issue with the internet, so I can answer to the question. So we, as I said before, we are at the beginning of the project, so we don't have some statistic to share with you. What I can say is that we are focused now to identify all the larvae habitats, because if we would like to have a success with your project, of course, you need to identify the correct larvae habitats for mosquitoes. So it's now our challenge. And then, yes, the organization will do some controls on the field to see how it works. But for us, it's quite the first, so we don't have yet statistics.
Okay, thanks a lot, Leslie. Again, what is the main challenge when it comes to using drone? The main challenge, please.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Could you repeat your question? You were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a network issue here. I was asking about the main challenge you used to have when using drone to fight against malaria.
Yeah, thank you for your question. As I said before, I think our main challenge now is the sensibilization of the population, because we will use a natural insecticide named BTI. It is a well-known insecticide for this kind of, for malaria prevention. But you need to explain to population why we spray their rice field, and that the insecticide is not dangerous for them. So I think it's quite challenging for the organization we work with. And the second challenge for us is to identify all the larvae habitats, because if you miss some habitats, the project will not be a success. So now we have all the mapping. We have identified a methodology to select the correct area, and then we will test it on the field.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
Do we
you
have
very
any more questions? All right, I suppose if we don't have any more questions or comments from the audience, then we can close things for this webinar. Thank you everyone for attending and participating in discussion and sharing your questions. And thank you so much to our presenters, Leslie and Yusuf from Madagascar and Tanzania Flying Labs.
Thank you so much to be there for our webinar. And thank you, Brie, for the organization, and Uganda, of course.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a nice rest of your day.
Bye.
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 Bye.